This is the last part of the series. In a different part of the story, Meng Zun confronted Lei Sun, wanting to know why the Liufenban sect had become so aggressive. Lei Sun didn't hold back, explaining that their attack was a response to dig deeper into the sect's illegal activities. The next day, Lei Chun bought one of Chou Fei's paintings, planning to give it as a gift to Meng Zun. Meanwhile, Xiaoxi asked Wenro to join him at a high point in the city where they could enjoy a beautiful view. While they gazed out at the scenery, there was a noticeable tension between them, hinting at a growing attraction. Later in the evening, Lei Chun gave the painting she had bought to Meng Zun as a gift. In return, Meng Zun had a jade necklace ready for her. They had a long chat and said their goodbyes, with Meng Zun thinking it might be their last meeting because he planned to confront her father. Meanwhile, Xiaoxi and Wenro continued their walk through the city. As they crossed a bridge, they came across a young man named Fang Yinkan, who pretended to be drowning in the river. Xiaoxi rushed to help, only to find out that it was a prank by Yinkan. He even pretended that Wenro was his wife, which annoyed her greatly. Eventually, Yinkan let them go after secretly stealing Wenro's money back. The next day, at the Liufenban sect, Lei Sun was frustrated again as Lei Mei defeated him in a traditional chess game. During their conversation, Lei Mei expressed her desire to oversee affairs in the northern region, an area known for the sect's illegal activities. Lei Sun strongly disagreed, thinking it would harm the sect's interests. Later, as Lei Mei was about to deliver a letter from Lei Sun to the Pilla sect, she met Fei Jing, who subtly hinted that she was favored too much by Lei Sun. Lei Mei reached a tavern in the Pilla sect's territory, where she ran into Chou Fei, who was enjoying some wine. Lei Mei mentioned Chou Fei's impressive journey from being a wanderer to becoming a deputy pavilion leader. Chou Fei, however, believed his success was due to more than just luck. Their conversation was cut short when Lei Sun's carriage arrived, prompting Lei Mei to quickly leave and return to her sect. On a different note, Lei Chun visited her mother's grave with Fei Jing to remember the anniversary of her mother's passing. She expressed her disappointment with Lei Sun for seemingly forgetting about her mother. Meanwhile, Lei Sun was seen drinking to honor his deceased wife's memory. Surprisingly, he invited Guan Qi, a man he had once imprisoned in a well. Meanwhile, Yin Kan wanted to meet his father, but Yuan Shan stopped him. As a result, Yin Kan decided to leave. Shortly after, he sent a letter to Wenro, offering to return her money in exchange for a meeting. Xiaoxi, aware of this, volunteered to meet Yin Kan instead. When they reached the agreed-upon location, Yin Kan played a trick on Xiaoxi by tossing the money bag into a well to Guan Qi, and they managed to escape from the well. Lei Sun, upon learning that Guan Qi had escaped, ordered his men to search for the captive. Meanwhile, Yin Kan was relaxed because he had intentionally helped Guan Qi escape, hoping to expose the Yuchou crime group. Xiaoxi took Guan Qi to a shop, and Guan Qi confided in him that he had no more family or friends. Later, Fei Jing and his men saw Guan Qi with Xiaoxi, but didn't think it was connected to the Jinfeng Rain Pavilion. However, even after Lei Sun got this information, he still suspected Meng Zun's involvement in the escape. After eating, Xiaoxi brought Guan Qi to the home of Guan Qi's friend Yan Hefa near the forest. Hefa was shocked to see Guan Qi, and things turned violent when Guan Qi, driven by revenge, killed Hefa's son and wife. Xiaoxi tried to intervene, but Guan Qi was too strong, and he easily knocked Xiaoxi out. Lei Sun met with Zhang Shu to tell him about Guan Qi's escape from the well prison, which worried Zhang Shu. Xiaoxi and Hefa woke up with chains around their arms and necks, and Guan Qi appeared, bragging about his martial skills and how Lei Sun had once needed 100 warriors and swordsmen to capture him. Meng Zun also heard about Guan Qi's release and wanted to recruit him because of his exceptional martial arts skills. Meanwhile, Law Division troops arrived at the Jinfeng Rain Pavilion. Chou Fei explained that Xiaoxi had nothing to do with Guan Qi's mission. They arrested Chou Fei to question him further at the Liufenban sect. Deep in the forest, Jinfeng Rain Pavilion troops finally found Xiaoxi, who was with Hefa and under Guan Qi's control. They were on their way to where Hefa had hidden Guan Qi's weapon. After retrieving it, He-Fad tried to fight Guan Qi, but was killed by his old friend. The Jinfeng Rain Pavilion's troops revealed themselves to rescue Xiaoxi. He tried to warn them about Guan Qi, but they didn't listen, and Guan Qi defeated them all with a single attack. Furious, Xiaoxi vowed to take matters into his own hands and defeat Guan Qi. Back in the Liufenban sect, Chou Fei strongly denied any connection between his pavilion and Guan Qi's escape. But Lei Sun wasn't convinced and prepared to execute Chou Fei. Thankfully, Lei Chun stepped in and revealed her true identity as the sect leader's daughter. Fei Jing pointed out that killing Chou Fei would hinder cooperation between the Liufenban sect and the Jinfeng Rain Pavilion in capturing Guan Qi. While waiting anxiously for Xiaoxi's return, Wenro decided to visit Ying Kan's place to ask about her missing friend. Ying Kan offered information about Xiaoxi's whereabouts in exchange for her compliance. Grateful for their help, Chou Fei thanked Lei Chun and Fei Jing for saving him. After Chou Fei left, Fei Jing talked to Lei Sun, the sect leader, about the timing of dealing with Chou Fei, suggesting that it wasn't the right moment. Meanwhile, Ying Kan invited Wenro to watch a sumo match and even challenged her to participate. Although initially overwhelmed by her opponent, Wenro's determination to find Xiaoxi drove her to victory. At the same time, Guan Qi went to Zhang Shu's place carrying a chest. He threw it at the gate, and when soldiers opened it, Xiaoxi popped out, holding a lit bomb. He urgently asked the soldiers to put out the bomb's fuse with water. Zhang Shu, who knew Guan Qi had arrived, tried to escape from the powerful warrior. Guan Qi chased after him, defeating any soldiers in his way. He finally caught up with Zhang Shu, ready to strike, but Xiaoxi stepped in, leading to a showdown that left Xiaoxi unconscious. Later in the evening, a tired Xiaoxi, still recovering, tried to walk to the pavilion but stumbled on the way. Wenro saw him and rushed to help, carrying him to ensure they reached the pavilion safely. Meanwhile, Zhang Shu sought refuge within the Liufenban sect after narrowly escaping Guan Qi. The next day, Fu Zi seemed to be getting ready for a fight as he carefully cleaned his spear. Cha Hua, worried, asked her husband to think twice about his plans. Inside the pavilion, Xiaoxi, now awake, asked Wenro about the scar on her face. She explained that she got it during the sumo match with Ying Kan. Then Xiaoxi gave Wenro back her money bag and a necklace he had purchased for her earlier, making her very happy. They hugged, and just then, Chou Fei and Meng Zun showed up, wanting to know how Xiaoxi was doing. Shortly after that, Ying Kan arrived at the Jinfeng Rain Pavilion to confess that he played a part in trapping Xiaoxi to free Guan Qi. He told them about his adoptive father, Fan Geyin, also known as the Blood Sword, who was hated by the Yukao group. Ying Kan's goal was to lure the group out of hiding by releasing Guan Qi. He suggested working together with the pavilion, but Chou Fei asked what the pavilion would gain from such an alliance. Meng Zun couldn't give an immediate answer, so Ying Kan said goodbye. After Ying Kan left, Meng Zun scolded Chou Fei for his profit-focused thinking, emphasizing that their pavilion stood for the values of honorable swordsmen and would continue its mission to fight crime. Meanwhile, Xiaoxi went to Fu Zi for information about Guan Qi. Fu Zi explained that Guan Qi was the ruthless leader of the Mitian Guild and expressed surprise that such a formidable warrior was still alive. Fu Zi had readied his spear to confront Guan Qi, but suggested that the younger generation handle the issue. In the Liufenban sect, Meng Zun and Lei Sun met with Zhang Shu to discuss their plan to capture Guan Qi. Meng Zun suggested that Zhang Shu act as bait to lure Guan Qi, but Zhang Shu seemed unsure. Meng Zun and Lei Sun decided to wait for Zhang Shu's decision, even though he had asked them to leave his room. Meanwhile, at Zhang Shu's concubine's residence, she anticipated Zhang Shu's arrival but was shocked when Guan Qi showed up, killing all the guard soldiers and torturing her to draw out Zhang Shu. Meanwhile, Xiaoxi and Wenro visited Fu Zi's home and found Xia in distress. She had given her husband permission to confront Guan Qi, and Xiaoxi asked Wenro to take care of Xia while he went to find Fu Zi. In the midst of the fierce battle, Zhang Shu's concubine desperately tried to escape Guan Qi's relentless attacks. Eventually, she came face to face with Fu Zai. In that moment, Guanxi seemed to recognize the elderly man standing before him, and without hesitation, they engaged in combat. Sadly, Fu Zi's strength couldn't match his formidable opponent's, and he had no choice but to accept defeat. As Fu Zi lay dying from Guanxi's spear attack, Xiaoxi finally arrived, his face filled with sorrow at the tragic scene. In his last moments, Fu Zi entrusted Xiaoxi with the care of Chahua, his grieving wife. Xiaoxi carried Fu Zi's lifeless body back home, burdened with guilt for arriving too late to save his beloved teacher. However, Chahua didn't hold Xiaoxi responsible and appeared to come to terms with her husband's passing. Meanwhile, Zongshu, who had initially been reluctant to act as bait for Guanxi, had a change of heart after learning of Fu Zi's death at the hands of the fierce warrior. He decided to cooperate with Meng Zun's plan. The next day, Meng Zun and the rest of the group gathered to say their final goodbye to Fu Zi at his funeral. After paying their respects, they put their plan into action to catch Guanxi with the help of Xiao Yao. Her brothel would be the place where they would set the trap. Meng Zun also warned Xiaoxi and Qiu Fei not to kill Guanxi, as he had important information about the Liufenban sect's illegal activities. As evening approached, Xiao Yao got ready to go along with Guanxi's plan for the ambush. However, it soon became clear that she had her own agenda. News spread about Zongshu being in the brothel, leading Meng Zun and the others to prepare for Guanxi's expected arrival at the establishment. After finding out that Guanxi was already inside the brothel, Zongshu, who had been working with the Liufenban sect, prepared for the upcoming showdown with the swordsmen. The fight began, and Meng Zun, with his superior martial skills, quickly gained the upper hand over Guanxi. However, he intentionally gave Guanxi a chance to fight back fairly. Despite the combined efforts of 4 people, Guanxi was overwhelmed. Just when he was about to be defeated, Xiao Yao suddenly appeared, carrying the injured swordsman away. She even set part of the brothel on fire to make sure Meng Zun and the others couldn't pursue them. Lei soon questioned why Xiao Yao had saved Guanxi, and Meng Zun, who knew about her connection to the Mitian Guild, felt guilty about the failed plan to capture Guanxi. In a quiet part of the city, a boy named Xiao Shuang, who lived with Xiao Yao, quietly made his way to a hidden house where Xiao Yao was taking care of the injured Guanxi. Seeing that Guanxi had woken up, Xiao Shuang told Xiao Yao about it. Surprisingly, Xiao Shuang turned out to be Guanxi's son. He expressed his wish to stay with Xiao Yao, knowing that he would eventually be reunited with his father once Guanxi got better. Xiao Yao recalled how she had first met Guanxi, who had saved her when she was about to be sold as a comfort woman. Since then, she had looked after Guanxi and had also become responsible for Xiao Shuang. Meanwhile, Qiu Fei received a plaque from Wu Xie that would help him search for Guanxi in different parts of the city. Wenrou, who had spent the day with Chahua and was picked up by Xiaoxi, returned to the pavilion. During their journey, Xiaoxi noticed a dog and had the idea to use the dog's sense of smell to track down Xiao Yao. He brought the dog to the brothel and collected some of Xiao Yao's clothes to help the dog recognize her scent. Before embarking on this mission, Wenrou, looking worried, asked him to come back safely. Using the dog's sharp nose, Xiaoxi started tracking down Xiao Yao. At the same time, Qiu Fei followed a horse-drawn carriage driven by Xiao Shuang to create a distraction and help Xiao Yao leave the city. Meanwhile, as Guanxi traveled with Xiao Yao, he confronted her about her apparent betrayal of Meng Zun and the others. Xiao Yao explained that she couldn't let Guanxi die, especially after she had almost been killed herself that night. This angered Guanxi, and he started choking her. In her defense, she mentioned that she was taking care of his son and could be a better parent than he had been. This made Guanxi even angrier, and he was about to kill her when Xiaoxi arrived just in time. After sparing Guanxi, Xiaoxi asked about Zongshu's involvement with the Liufenban sect's illegal activity country, which brought in significant profits for him and the sect. Since the government showed no signs of stopping the war, the demand for weapons would continue. Shortly after, Qiu Fei life. Annoyed, Xiaoxi left the forest, carrying the injured Xiao Yao with him. After Chou Fei left, Lei Sun and Fei Jing showed up at the scene. Lei Sun told Fei Jing to take Guan Qi's head, which they'd brought to Zhang Shu. Zhang Shu was clearly angry and even spat on Guan Qi's severed head. Then, Lei Sun and Fei Jing returned the head for a proper burial. Back at Yin Kan's place, he received the news of Guan Qi's death. This disappointed him because he had hoped Guan Qi would be able to kill Lei Sun. Meanwhile, Meng Zun's health was getting worse in the pavilion, and this worried Wu Xie. Wu Xie bought various medicines for his friend. Lei Chun had originally planned to visit her mother's grave with Fei Jing. However, when she saw her father's sadness in front of the grave because he couldn't save Guan Qi, she decided to let him spend time there. She was relieved to see that he still remembered her mother. In the capital, Xiao Shuang took care of the injured Xiao Yao and expressed his happiness at reuniting with his father. Back at the pavilion, Chou Fei felt regretful about hurting Xiao Yao while trying to kill Guan Qi. Meng Zun didn't blame Chou Fei, but he advised him to be more cautious when using his sword in battle. They then had a meeting with Xiao Shi and Wu Xie to discuss the movements of the Youkou group, which might be working with the Liufenban sect to produce and sell weapons to countries at war. Meng Zun asked Wu Xie to investigate this matter. A few days later, after Xiao Yao had recovered, she planned to surrender to the Jinfeng Rain Pavilion, expecting punishment and expulsion. However, during the sentencing process, Meng Zun suddenly stopped it, admitting that he also felt responsible for Xiao Yao's actions. Before she left, Wu Xie had a chance to express her appreciation for Xiao Yao's contributions to the pavilion. The next day, Chou Fei was still grieving Fuzi's death, and Xiao Shi and Wenro tried to comfort Chahua. In the city, Lei Chun went to buy plum sweets, but found out they had all been bought by someone else. She smiled, realizing who had done it. Later, she invited Xiao Shi and Chou Fei to the park in an attempt to reconcile them, but it didn't work, as the two young men chose to take a walk alone. At the Liufenban sect, Lei Chun was delighted to receive a plum candy from Meng Zun and reciprocated by sending him dozens of plum blossom plants. Yin Kan continued his efforts to meet his adoptive father, Go Yin, by entrusting his written work to one of Go Yin's confidants when Yuan Shan refused to allow the meeting. Meanwhile, Xiao Shi stumbled upon a writing competition in a park and praised a unique but poorly received piece of work by Go Yin. Go Yin, the author of the piece, was intrigued by Xiao Shi's abilities and asked him to collaborate on a paper. After they finished, Xiao Shi felt his work was less interesting compared to Go Yin's writing. Impressed by Xiao Shi's skills, Go Yin asked his bodyguard to take the paper home. On the way back, the arrogant bodyguard had a confrontation with Chou Fei, prompting Go Yin to apologize to Chou Fei for his bodyguard's behavior. Chou Fei couldn't help but feel that there was something peculiar about Go Yin. Meanwhile, Wenro, strolling by herself, unexpectedly crossed paths with Yin Kan. In their chat, Yin Kan asked why she once saw him as a swordsman when he had been viewed as a worthless boy in his youth. Wenro disclosed that Yin Kan's strength in overcoming a difficult past had made her recognize his potential. At Go Yin's place, he encountered Yuan Shan, who presented Yin Kan's written work. However, Go Yin favored Xiao Shi's work and asked Yuan Shan to showcase the young man's work that he had just come across in the park. In the evening, Chou Fei and Xiao Shi enjoyed a puppet show together. Wenro took the opportunity to subtly influence the puppet show's storyline, hoping it would help reconcile the two friends. When the performance concluded, Wenro initially felt disheartened to see Chou Fei and Xiao Shi leaving separately. She went to a tavern by herself, feeling down. To her surprise, both Xiao Shi and Chou Fei eventually joined her at the tavern, and it was clear that they had patched up their relationship. As a token of their gratitude for Wenro's efforts in bringing them together, Xiao Shi and Chou Fei gave her a gift. The next day, Chou Fei went to a market, and there the owner of a painting shop approached him. The shop owner told Chou Fei that his painting had been sold and gave him the money from the sale, along with a letter from the buyer. After reading the letter, Chou Fei discovered that Lei Chun had bought the painting. He rushed to find Xiaoxi to share this news, and Xiaoxi realized that Lei Chun had romantic feelings for Qiu Fei. Meanwhile, in the Liufenban sect, Lei Sun was enjoying tea with his daughter Lei Chun. He complimented her tea and talked about Qiu Fei, expressing his high opinion of him and allowing Lei Chun to spend time with him. Later, Lei Chun visited the Jinfeng Rain Pavilion, and Wenro, who was aware of the visit, hurried to meet her. During their conversation, Wenro initially mistook Lei Chun for Tian Chun, but soon realized her true identity. Lei Chun asked for Wenro's assistance in conveying to Qiu Fei that she didn't have romantic feelings for him, as she was in a relationship with Meng Zun. Wenro agreed to help with this and expressed her apprehension about explaining the situation to Qiu Fei. After meeting Lei Chun, Qiu Fei tried to express his feelings for her through a painting. However, she gently turned down his advances, explaining that her heart had been drawn to someone since childhood, someone she had met at a sweets shop. In response, Qiu Fei rushed to the sweets shop to find out more about this person. The story then took us back 13 years ago, when Lei Sun from the Liufenban sect met with Zimu from the Jinfeng Rain Pavilion to discuss the possibility of a match between Lei Chun and Meng Zun. During their meeting, Lei Chun left the room for a stroll and ended up in front of the confectionery shop. Some individuals attempted to kidnap Lei Chun, but Meng Zun, who happened to be there, came to her rescue by bravely fighting off the group of men. Afterward, Meng Zun took Lei Chun away from the scene and emphasized that a swordsman's duty is to protect others. In the present, Qiu Fei returns to the pavilion, determined to confirm whether Meng Zun is the man Lei Chun had referred to. When he enters the pavilion leader's room, he spots the painting that Lei Chun had given to Meng Zun. This discovery breaks Qiu Fei's heart, and he seeks comfort from Xiaoxi and Wenro. Xiaoxi sympathizes with his friend's pain, but advises him not to push his feelings and to accept the reality of the situation. Feeling dejected, Qiu Fei decides to drown his sorrows in a tavern. On another day, Lei Sun invites Ying Kan to the Liufenban sect after learning about Ying Kan's involvement in Guan Qi's release from prison. He cautions Ying Kan against repeating such actions. After Ying Kan departs, Lei Sun discusses Ying Kan's act of feigning weakness despite possessing strong martial arts skills. He also reveals Ying Kan's intention to eliminate him to secure a position within the Yukio group. Lei Sun orders Fei Jing to go to the Pilla sect and bring back Lei Mei, who is fulfilling her duties there. Fei Jing follows Lei Sun's instructions, but he runs into a group of people from the Pilla sect who were intentionally gathered by Lei Mei to hinder him. Later, Lei Mei returns to her sect and has a conversation with Lei Sun, trying to justify her actions in recruiting these swordsmen to test Fei Jing's abilities. She claims it was to assess their strength, but Lei Sun sees through her motives and suspects she wants to replace Fei Jing in their sect. Lei Mei also seeks permission from Lei Sun to handle matters in the northern region. Meanwhile, in the pavilion, Meng Zun is with Lei Chun, explaining how his red crescent sword compensates for his physical weaknesses by enhancing his strength. Lei Chun hopes that if the Liufenban sect and the pavilion can resolve their differences, their relationship will become smoother. However, Meng Zun feels a sense of sadness after their meeting, as he anticipates the challenges of maintaining their relationship amid the ongoing tension between the two factions. In the city, Qiu Fei hands over his painting to a shop owner and mentions that he might take a break from painting for a while. As he leaves the shop, he unexpectedly runs into Ying Kan, who is in a tough situation and being chased by some people. Qiu Fei steps in and helps resolve the issue, and in gratitude, Ying Kan invites him for tea. During their conversation, Qiu Fei offers Ying Kan some advice, suggesting that he should stop pretending to be a weak young man, because he knows that Ying Kan is skilled in martial arts. However, Ying Kan doesn't seem keen on taking that advice. Instead, he shares a map indicating the location of the weapons factory operated by the Liufenban sect. Qiu Fei is puzzled why Ying Kan didn't give the map directly to Meng Zun, and Ying Kan explains that they both have faced similar challenges as marginalized individuals. He encourages Qiu Fei to join their cause, as they share a common goal of confronting Lei Sun and Zhang Shu. At the same time, Xiaoxi is engrossed in painting a paper lantern, a gift he plans to give to Wenro. During this time, he comes across Xiao Shuang and decides to accompany the boy to Guanqi's grave. As they chat, Xiao Shuang opens up about his childhood, explaining how he rarely got to spend time with Guanqi. Xiaoxi understands his feelings, as he too experienced the absence of his own adoptive father, who was a soldier during his early years. Meanwhile, over at the Liufenban sect, it seems that Lei Sun is preparing to travel to the northern region to oversee his weapons business. What's surprising is that Lei Mei is also in the carriage and insists on joining him, eventually convincing Lei Sun to let her come along. In the evening, Xiaoxi travels up to the northern region to dig into the shady dealings of the Liufenban sect. He starts noticing some strange business activities happening in the area. Lei Sun, who's also made his way to the northern region, keeps a watchful eye on his workers from his chariot. Meanwhile, Qiu Fei gathers a group of soldiers and decides to take matters into his own hands without waiting for Meng Zun's approval. When Lei Sun spots Xiaoxi in the region, he signals his men to hurry up with their deliveries, suggesting that the Liufenban sect might be feeling the heat and urgency. Over at the Jinfeng Rain Pavilion, Wu Xie gets hold of a letter and Qiu Fei's plans to halt the flow of these arms all on his own. Intercept Qiu Fei to prevent him from messing up the enemy's moves. Qiu Fei and his troops launch an attack on a warehouse where the weapons are stashed, but they find themselves up against highly skilled. Frustrated, Xiaoxi decides to leave the scene. Lei soon heads to a warehouse with a hidden room where weapons are being made. When he and Lei Mei get inside, Lei soon intends to wreck the warehouse and get rid of all the workers, because the pavilion has now found out where the weapons are being produced. At the same time, Wu Xie and his team successfully ambush the Liufenban sect's weapon delivery train, causing all the weapons to blow up. Meng Zun, who's been watching from a distance, is pleased with the mission's success. Lei Sun, on the other hand, seems pretty upset with how things turned out. When Xiaoxi got back to the pavilion, he had a talk with Meng Zun about why Qiu Fei did what he did in the northern region, like acting on his own without telling anyone. Qiu Fei explained that he got the info from Ying Kan, which made Meng Zun advise him to be careful with Ying Kan, who might have hidden intentions. But Qiu Fei got even more upset and said that despite being the vice president, he didn't have a say in pavilion matters. They argued, and Qiu Fei said that their brotherly relationship had changed. The next day, Zhang Xu met with Ge Yin, who was also known as Prime Minister Kai, and was a key figure in the illegal arms business of a warring country. Zhang Xu apologized for the failed weapons delivery the previous night, and Ge Yin told him to fix the problem fast. Zhang Xu, trying to avoid blame, tried to put it on the Liufenban sect. While Lei Sun, with Lei Mei by his side, suspected her of leaking info about their weapons shipments, she denied it and said she always followed Lei Sun's orders. Later, Lei Mei went to a place of worship and met with Meng Zun in secret. She admitted to sending a letter to Wu Xie about the weapons delivery route during their conversation. Meng Zun warned her to be careful because Lei Sun wouldn't just stay quiet after what happened the previous night. At the Liufenban sect, Zhang Xu got really upset and wanted all the gifts he gave to the sect back because they messed up the weapons delivery. He asked Lei Sun to account for those items, but Lei Sun threatened that Zhang Xu would still get in trouble. Lei Sun even suggested they should get rid of Meng Zun instead. On the other hand, Lei Chun thought the explosion from the other night might be linked to her sect, but Fei Jing couldn't spill the beans about their illegal activities. After his meeting with the Liufenban sect, Zhang Xu went back to the Prime Minister and talked about his plan to deal with Meng Zun. Ge Yin realized that it was Lei Sun's idea, not Zhang Xu's. In a house on a hill, Qiu Fei met with Ying Kan to vent his frustration, blaming Ying Kan for putting his life at risk the previous night. Qiu Fei challenged Ying Kan to a game where they risked their lives. Calmly, Ying Kan agreed and said both of them wanted the top position. Qiu Fei got mad and didn't want to be compared to Ying Kan, warning him that if he kept cheating, he'd never be a hero. After Qiu Fei won the game, he left Ying Kan's place. Now let's shift our focus to Lei Sun, who's pretty upset about the messed up weapons delivery. Lei Chun, his daughter, tries to comfort him when she sees him so distressed. Lei soon opens up and tells her that he was forced into some shady business by the government or they'd ruin the sect. This shady stuff also made him break off Lei Chun's engagement with Meng Zun. Hearing all this, Lei Chun tries to make her dad feel better and promises to talk to Meng Zun about sparing him. Over at the pavilion, Yin Kan pays a visit and challenges Xiao Shi to a wrestling match. Xiao Shi agrees, but during the match, Yin Kan plays dirty by using a hidden weapon to hurt Xiao Shi. Furious, Xiao Shi beats Yin Kan and warns him to stay away from their group. Yin Kan gets more and more angry at Xiao Shi, especially when he sees that Wenro is interested in him. Back to Lei Chun, she meets up with Meng Zun as a representative of her sect and begs him to forgive her dad for the shady business. After thinking it over, Meng Zun, not wanting the woman he loves to suffer, agrees to her request. Her plea works, but Lei Chun feels really sad because her relationship with Meng Zun has been used for her sect's gain. When Lei Chun gets back to her place, she overhears Lei Sun and Fei Jing talking about plans to kill Meng Zun. She's shocked and doesn't get a chance to warn Meng Zun. Fei Jing locks her up. That night, Fei Jing tries to connect with Lei Chun by sharing his story from when he was a kid. He tells her how Lei Sun and his wife saved him, which made him want to protect the sect. Lei Chun admits that she also thinks of Fei Jing as family. Meanwhile, Lei Sun meets Chou Fei at a shop and suggests they work together to get rid of Meng Zun and make Chou Fei the pavilion's owner. The next day, Xiao Shi and Wenro start getting worried when Chou Fei doesn't come back to the pavilion. After looking for him, they find Chou Fei in a tavern. He explains that he's decided not to return to the pavilion, and though Xiao Shi wishes he wouldn't, he asks that they still stay on good terms. Over at the Liufenban sect, Lei Chun's servant secretly gives a sleeping potion to the person in charge of her room. This sneaky move makes the roomkeeper all drowsy, allowing Princess Lei Chun to slip away from the sect without anyone noticing. She wants to warn Meng Zun about her dad's evil plans. When she gets to the city, Lei Chun sees Wenro and asks her to come along. Sadly, Fei Jing and his group figure out where Lei Chun is and knock Wenro out. Then Fei Jing takes her to an inn and gets ready to go after Meng Zun. On a snowy night, Xiao Shi seems to leave the place where Chou Fei is staying, and Meng Zun gets an invite from Lei Chun. Meanwhile, Yin Kan is seen tending to his injuries from his fight with Xiao Shi. At the inn, Lei Chun suddenly hears a commotion. When she looks outside, she sees the guards have been beaten. So, she saves the unconscious Wenro and tries to get away. But in a hallway, they bump into a masked person they didn't expect to see. Now let's focus on Meng Zun. Even though he had some doubts about a possible trap set by Lei Sun, he decided to go to the planned meeting. When he got to the meeting spot, Lei Sun brought up the idea of the pavilion and his sect working together to get rid of the Yukio group. But Meng Zun said no to this idea, which made hidden warriors suddenly appear and attack him. At the same time, Xiao Shi found Wenro's necklace on the ground. Meanwhile, that persistent masked person kept going after Lei Chun and Wenro, trying to scare Wenro. Lei Chun, being brave, stood up to the masked person to protect her friend, even though it put her in danger. But this made the masked person focus on Lei Chun instead. When Xiao Shi got to the corridor, the masked person quickly left, so he checked on Wenro to make sure she was okay. Even though he offered to help Lei Chun, she said no and asked him to save Meng Zun, who was the one her dad wanted to hurt. The masked person took off their mask and left, revealing a swordsman dressed in white. A little later, Xiao Shi and Chou Fei rushed to help Meng Zun. When they got there, Lei Sun and Fei Jing realized they couldn't beat Meng Zun together. So, Lei Sun suggested a one-on-one fight with Meng Zun. During the fight, Fei Jing suddenly pushed Lei Sun into a building that had explosives rigged inside, hoping to trap Meng Zun. The building blew up in a big explosion, and Lei Sun was thrown into a nearby lake. After that, Meng Zun and the others left, and Fei Jing quickly rescued Lei Sun from the water. Back at the pavilion, Lei Chun had a hard time dealing with what had happened to her. Feeling hurt by the mistreatment she had endured, she asked Wenro to keep it a secret from everyone else. Meanwhile, Munzun's health got worse after the tough fight the night before, making Wu Xie really worried about him. As Munzun started getting better, he tried to talk to Lei Chun, but she avoided him. In another sad moment, Lei Chun found out that her father had died because of the explosion caused by Fei Jing's betrayal. She was really sad and remembered Fei Jing's promise to protect her family, which made her miss her dad even more. On the other side, hidden away in a forest hideout, Lei Sun, surprisingly alive, scolded Fei Jing for his actions that had nearly killed him. Fei Jing suggested a plan for Lei Sun to pretend to be dead and wait for the right time for revenge while ensuring Lei Chun's happiness. After that, they set off on a journey to a secret refuge. On the way, Lei Sun took Fei Jing to visit his father's grave, which made Fei Jing remember all the kindness and care he had received from Lei Sun and his wife, who he had come to think of as his own parents. Back at the pavilion, Munzun gathered Xiaoxi and Chou Fei for a meeting. He talked about hosting a big feast to symbolize the unity of all the sects in the capital and warned about the possibility of Lei Sun still being alive. Meanwhile, Lei Sun went to a warehouse to check on the coffin intended for his fake death at the Jinfeng Rain Pavilion's banquet. In another part of the city, Lei Mei initially celebrated the news of Lei Sun's death. However, her happiness was short-lived when Dong Tian told her that Lei Sun was actually alive, and she immediately called everyone together. Shortly after, the grand banquet began at the Jinfeng Rain Pavilion. Sect representatives congratulated Munzun for successfully bringing together the capital sects. From a higher place, Xiaoxi and Chou Fei watched the event. Unexpectedly, the Liufenban sect arrived with a coffin, and Lei Sun attacked Munzun. In the midst of the chaotic battle, Lei Mei, driven by her long-held grudge against Lei Sun, tried to harm the sect leader. Realizing he was running out of strength, Lei Sun admitted defeat and intentionally impaled himself with Munzun's sword, ending his own life. Lei Chun, who witnessed this tragic scene, was devastated, as was Munzun, who never intended to kill Lei Chun's father. After his confrontation with Lei Sun, Munzun's health deteriorated further, prompting Wu Xie to call for a healer to examine him thoroughly. During this time, the Liufenban sect was mourning, and at Lei Sun's final tribute ceremony, Lei Chun made an announcement. She stated that she had passed the leadership position to Fei Jing, who urged everyone to remain calm and avoid rushing into revenge against the Jinfeng Rain Pavilion. The sect members then carried out the funeral rites for Lei Sun. On the way, Zhang Shu paid his respects by offering money, and even Wu Xie and other members of the pavilion paid their last respects to the fallen hero, Lei Sun. Dong Tian and the sect members seemed unhappy with the pavilion members, but they managed to control their anger toward the Jinfeng Rain Pavilion. Meanwhile, Lei Mei went to a liquor store where she met Chou Fei. Lei Mei confessed that, despite achieving her revenge, she still felt sadness. Chou Fei advised her to strive for a better life and pursue happiness. Back in the pavilion, Munzun and Xiaoxi talked about Chou Fei's plan to leave. Xiaoxi assured Munzun that their brotherly bond would remain strong even if Chou Fei left the pavilion. Munzun then asked about Xiaoxi's future plans, and Xiaoxi explained that he only wanted to investigate his mother's death and make a positive contribution to the martial world. Upon hearing this, Munzun offered Xiaoxi the position of pavilion leader, but Xiaoxi declined, saying he could achieve his goals without holding that position. On another occasion, Chou Fei was in Munzun's room, admiring a painting. However, Munzun entered, coughing, and Chou Fei encouraged him to rest. Munzun assured him he was okay, and mentioned that he had discovered the painting Lei Chun had given was actually crafted by Chou Fei. He expressed his sadness at not having the chance to meet her, even after her father's passing. It was during this conversation that Chou Fei shared his plan to leave the pavilion. On a different day, Xiaoxi arranged a meeting for Munzun, Chou Fei, Wenrou, and Lei Chun. During the meeting, Xiaoxi talked about his defense sword, symbolizing their brotherly bond. Lei Chun, who had just arrived, mentioned that she knew the sword's story, which included lovers like her and Munzun who couldn't be together. After this statement and turning down Munzun's offer of wine, Lei Chun, who had ended her romantic relationship with Munzun, left the gathering. A few days later, Yuan Shan arrived at the Liufenban sect to introduce the new sect leader. Lei Chun didn't seem to approve because the government now controlled the sect. However, Fei Jing tried to calm her down. That night, to Lei Chun's shock, the new sect leader tried to make her his wife, and Fei Jing rushed to help her. Unfortunately, he couldn't confront Yuan Shan, who was guarding Lei Chun's room. Inside the room, Lei Chun was reminded of her traumatic past when a masked figure abused her. In a sudden and shocking turn of events, she transformed into a ruthless figure and killed the new sect leader. Yuan Shan, who saw this, instructed her to meet with the Prime Minister the following morning to account for her actions. After Yuan Shan left, Fei Jing hurried to comfort her as she sobbed in distress outside the room. The next day, Lei Chun met with Ge Yin and talked about making amends for her actions. Ge Yin suggested she replace her father, Lei Sun, and work for the government. After the meeting, Lei Chun lost herself in playing her harp, reflecting on her father's advice to seek Qiu Fei's help if she wanted revenge. She planned to follow her father's guidance. Meanwhile, Qiu Fei, who was drinking, got a message from a waiter informing him about Lei Chun's mission to Chuha village, as ordered by Ge Yin. In the evening, Qiu Fei gathered Xiaoxi and Wenro for a painting session, but he only managed to finish a portrait of the two friends that night. He planned to add his own image to the painting once concerns about their illegal business being exposed by the Jinfeng Rain Pavilion. He proposed a plan to set a trap for the pavilion. Zhang Shu and Ge Yin agreed to manipulate Xiaoxi into killing Zheng Wo. This way, they would have an excuse to take down the pavilion. As part of their plan, Yuan Shan, who was about to meet Xiaoxi, suddenly attacked him using a martial arts move similar to Xiaoxi's teacher's style. After a chat, Yuan Shan invited Xiaoxi to meet Ge Yin for a further discussion. They wanted to reveal that Zheng Wo was the leader of the Yukio group. Xiaoxi was skeptical at first, but Ge Yin. Xiaoxi tried to stop them to ask about their business, but they threatened to arrest him if he kept obstructing Zheng's journey. He reluctantly let them pass. Later, at a nearby liquor store, the owner intentionally poisoned the middle-aged man to prevent him from revealing their secrets. Everyone in the alley was involved in the conspiracy to deceive Xiaoxi, so they quickly got rid of the man's body. On another occasion, Xiaoxi met with Fei Jing to discuss the leader of the Yukio group. During their talk, Fei Jing warned Xiaoxi to be careful because the investigation was dangerous. They both suspected that advised Xiaoxi to be cautious around people he couldn't fully trust, as some might be spying for the... Sensing the presence of spies, Xiaoxi deliberately shared information with Wu Xie, revealing that Zheng Wo was the leader of the Yukio group. He gave Wu Xie instructions on how to verify this information. Inside the pavilion, Wu Xie expressed his concerns about Xiaoxi's recent strange behavior to Wenro, who also noticed the change in Xiaoxi. She tried to approach him, but he remained distant and mentioned the return of Xiao Yao to the capital. She expressed no regret for saving Guan Qi, even though it led to her expulsion from the pavilion. Xiao Yao believed in following one's convictions to find happiness without regrets and encouraged Xiaoxi to do the same. At the same time, Xiao Shuang told Wenro that Xiaoxi was at the Sinha pavilion. Wenro went there to find him, but he remained distant and cold, leaving her feeling sad. The next day, Qiu Fei and Lei Chun reached the Pilla sect and saw a disturbing sight: a person hanging in front of the sect's gate. They had a meeting with Lei Tian, the son of the sixth sect leader. During their talk, they discussed the division within the sect, which had split into two groups. Qiu Fei suggested a plan to get rid of Lei Yi, the leader of the opposing faction, so that Lei Tian could take full control of the sect. In the evening, Lei Chun went to the sect's prison, where Lei Tian had imprisoned Lei Yi. It was there that Lei Tian revealed his true goal, which was to avenge the deaths of his 5 brothers, all killed by Qiu Fei. Soon after, Qiu Fei approached the sect's gate, where Lei Tian was hiding, ready to attack Lei Yi. Along the way, Qiu Fei noticed many hidden soldiers. When he let his guard down, Lei Tian launched an attack. Qiu Fei found himself facing Lei Tian and his troops alone. Thankfully, Lei Chun stepped in and led him to a bridge as an escape route. However, they ended up surrounded and decided to jump into the river. Towards the end of the story, Lei Chun and Chou Fei faced a tough situation. Lei Chun suggested they quickly return to the Pilla sect. She had managed to free Lei Yi, and with his help, she weakened Lei Tian's forces. Lei Chun took decisive action, executing several soldiers who resisted her efforts. Eventually, through her determination, Lei Tian's troops were persuaded to join her cause, becoming her loyal followers. The end. So the moral of the story is, if you ever find yourself in a river surrounded by vengeful sect leaders, remember to bring a life jacket and a bag of marshmallows for unexpected s'mores diplomacy.